Hey, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy Advent season. Joe had reached out to me to see if I would share an experience that I had while I was living in Africa in regards to spirituality and angels. And so I wanted to share that with you today. Um, you know, Growing up in a Christian home and being a Christian from an early age, I learned a lot about spirituality. But until I was living in Africa, I never really experienced just how intense it is the spirituality that we live every day. We're in a spiritual battle. The Bible talks about that, talks about, a war that we're in, a spiritual war. And I really experienced that first time when I was living in Africa. So I'll tell you about this situation that happened with me. So there was this boy who came to the orphanage. His name was Nuru. He was about 10 years old, and the police had brought him to us. So that they had found him on the street. He had ridden his bicycle like 40 miles, and they were trying to figure out where he was going, didn't know where he was from. They ended up dropping him off at our place. They said they would be back here in a couple of days when they find out where his mother is, or if he has family or whoever. So um, like right away when he first came to the orphanage, he had a lot of behavioral issues. He was doing a lot of bad things, stupid things, and driving me nuts and driving everybody else nuts that was at the orphanage. And so it several days went by. He was always getting in trouble, doing bad things, and some of the older kids at the orphanage at the time started noticing some things about him that they started questioning, and they had told me that they think that he might have some spiritual issues going on. And so I just kind of said, okay, didn't really think a whole lot of it. Well, there happened to be one day that Ashley and I went to Cotonou, which is like 2 hour drive. So we go there. We get back one night pretty late, and Jillian, who was another American living in Benin with us at the time, she had been there for, I don't know, maybe 6 months or so at this time. We were there for several. I don't know. We were probably there 4 years at this time. So she comes out. We get back to the orphanage, and her eyes are as big as saucers. This is probably 10 o'clock at night, and she said, "John, you need to go into the boys' dorm, talk to some of the older boys." Well, what had happened was, long story short, this is probably a 30-minute story that I'll try to wrap up in just a couple minutes. But um, some of the older boys had taken Nuru aside and started praying, or they started asking him these questions like, "Are you into witchcraft and sorcery?" And he denied it. He said, "No, I'm not. I'm not into sorcery. Not at all." Well, these some of the older boys, they just start praying, like the kind of praying that bring the fire down from heaven kind of praying. All of a sudden, the boy starts to kind of open up, and like I said, he's 10, maybe 11 years old. All of a sudden, he says, "Okay, I am a sorcerer. I've been sent here to kill Papa John, who is me." So they start praying, and start asking him more questions, and then he kind of clams up and doesn't. He's not speaking anymore. Well, they start praying more, and he starts opening up some more, and he basically told a story of how he and his mom and his aunt and another girl had come to our house in the night to try to kill me. And so I show up, like I'm in there. I'm talking with Augustin and Bernard, some of the older boys, and I'm kind of asking questions and saying different things. I'm like, Nuru, you don't even know where I live. We lived about a mile or a mile and a half away from the orphanage, is where Ashley and I actually lived. And I said, Nuru, you don't even know where we live. And he said, yeah, I do. You go down here, you take a right, you go down. He basically indicated the way. I'm like, okay, well, lucky guess. And I said, do we live in a 1 story apartment, a 2 story apartment, a 3 story apartment? He said, you live in a 2 story apartment. I said, okay, lucky guess. And I said, do we live on the right side or the left side? He said, you live on the right side in the upstairs apartment. I'm like, okay, I guess you do know where we live. So he proceeds to tell the story of how they came to our house in the night to try to kill me. And as soon as they arrived to our house, there was a spirit that was met at the front gate. He said it was my spirit, basically, is what he was saying. It was my spirit. Um, he said that my spirit was met that had met them at the front gate, and as soon as his mom tried to do something to harm me, he said that there was fire that came out of the spirit and knocked them to the ground, and basically said, the power that I had was stronger than the power that they had. Um, so initially, I'm thinking, okay, this kid's he's got some mental health issues. I didn't really believe him. Long story short, we end up finding out who this other girl was. They had not. She'd actually been like 3 hours away, physically from the orphanage, and during this whole time that Nura had been at the orphanage, she comes back to the orphanage. The boys kind of pull her aside. This is several days later. They pull her aside and they say, "Hey, were you there the night they tried to kill Papa John?" And she said no. They start praying, 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 and this is an 8-year-old girl. She starts opening up and says, "Okay, yeah, I was there." And like I said, they were not together physically at all during this time. Well, she ends up telling the same exact story that Nuru told about coming to our house, and it was the four of them, and they tried to kill me, and the power that I had within me was greater than the power that they had, and the fire came and knocked them out. So, anyways, it was kind of an interesting story. Um, I'll never forget. I called my dad and I'm telling this story and telling this whole story, and at the end, it's just kind of silent, and he says, "Well, if that doesn't make you do your devotionals, I don't know that anything will." So, anyways, just wanted to share that story with you. Hope you guys are doing well. Love you. Miss you. Bye.